Hello everyone, so in this video I'm going to share with you some of my comments on the components of a research paper. Okay, so we all know that a research paper it will have a relatively fixed structure, and that is the common structure that we will all follow when we write a research paper. So other component or structure of a research paper. All right, let's get started. So I have a sample right here. So on the right, this is a paper, and on the left, we're gonna put out some comment right here. Okay, so the first is you see that we got a title, we got an abstract, and now this is a bit too small, but let it hang on right there. So we have abstract. Let me see if I can just hide it. Okay, we can hide that one now. So so basically we're gonna have the abstract, and then introduction, moving down a bit, then we have something called literature review, or we can call it research background. We got subheadings here, but we're gonna skip that. And current study, we got methodology, we got the results, or you can call it results or findings, that's all good. And the next component is the discussion. I'm just gonna give it some number so we can easily count how many of them. Okay, structure a research paper. Okay, lastly we will have conclusion. Now the limitations, if you want, you can put in in the headings, or if not, you can just include it in your writing, and that should be all good. Now we're going to move on to talk a little bit about what it is in the abstract, in the introduction, in the literature review, in the methodologies, and so on for the other. Okay, so let's first start with the abstract. What is it in the abstract? So basically, the abstract is a summary of your study. Well, there are many different ways to write an abstract, okay? But generally it will include, you may think of it as some background, and the gaps. Okay, let's talk about some background. Let's just create another one. So new slide. Okay, so abstract. What we want to do in the abstract is we need to provide some background and the gap. And then the purpose of the study. Purpose of the study. Method. How did you find out about it? And the key findings. Absolutely key findings, or you can call it highlights. Discussion. Again, it's very brief, just one sentence, and discussion and implications. Implication. All right. Now, because the abstract is fairly short, we wouldn't want to write a lot for it. It should be about, normally your article will actually do 150 to 250 word maximum for the abstract. So normally I would aim for around 150, and it's a little bit somewhere like that. Now it's vary a lot because some can just go right into talk about the purpose, the method, and other. So these are optional, but it's always better if you got a background and you have the gap, because then the readers are maybe more interested in your study when they know the why the study was conducted, what is the meaning of it, what is the gap it's trying to fill. So this is very important. Generally, I would say 1 or 2 sentences for each of the section in the abstract, because it's very concise. So for example, background 1 sentence, gap 1 sentence, purpose 1 sentence, method 1 sentence, key finding maybe 2 sentences. Yeah, in discussions 1 to 2 sentences. Okay, and then 1 sentence for implication. All right, so that's for the abstract. This next is the introduction. What is the introduction? So introductions, absolutely we need to introduce the background, or we can say that what is the topic, okay, topic and significance of it. Okay, so for example, in my study, in this study, we're talking about exposure to reading English text online. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it is, by what do we mean by exposure, how does it have an impact on reading abilities. Okay, so we introduce topic, we introduce significance of it. Okay, the next thing is we need to point out the gap, because the introduction is where you set the stage, you problematize something that you want to investigate, so it's important to point out the gaps. Okay, and then the gaps in absolutely how the study contributes, how this study contribute to bridging the gap. So it's very important that you put it clearly how your study can help to bridge the gap, because then the editors or the readers will feel whether they are satisfied with your rationale. Yes, right. The next thing you want to do is a little bit about the purposes. Now, what exactly are you trying to do in your study? Okay, what exactly is you trying to do? For example, you study, I say it, I am to investigate blah blah blah. So what is the purpose of your study? Okay, now at this stage it's up to you. You may want to have a research question ready, or you may wait a bit later. Hypothesis, you may put it right here, or you may wait a bit later. Now let's move on to the next section, which is literature review or research background. So as the name suggests, you need to point out what has been found in regard about the topic in the literature. So there are 2 questions. This is one of the questions, 2 guiding questions that I can think of. What has been found, and then what is the theory or concept that the study draw upon. Yeah, so you may, there are no fixed numbers in regard to how many sections that you should have. It's just that it depends on your topic, and you figure it out. Like, okay, so if the topic is about reading, if it is about online text, it's about vocabulary, then at least in the literature review you need to talk about these things, like vocabulary, comprehension, the relationship between them. Well, although we didn't write the relationship, but when we write it like this, it means that we are talking about the relationship between or among them. Okay, it's up to you to decide how many of it, as long as you inform the reader what has been found and what is the theory concept that you want to draw upon. This is important because it's inform your method. It's inform your methods, and then you can later discuss the findings in relation to the literature. Okay, and also the theory. Yeah, what is a theory? That's the framework that guide your study. Right. The next sections is about the methodology. So, they may vary, but these are the common subsection. We want to talk about the participants. We want to talk about the instruments, or instrument can be tests or any kind of measure that you use to measure the participant knowledge or whatever it is. In this case, I'm using web recognition tests. It is an instrument that we design, and then a vocabulary size test, a reading test, thing like that. Okay, and then the next thing you want to talk about is the procedure. How did the experiment was conducted, or how did the survey, how did you conduct the survey? And then we got data analysis. Okay, analysis. How did you go about analyzing the data? What kind of statistical analysis did you use? Things like that. Okay, if you don't have a participant, maybe you need to talk about the materials. If you don't have a participant, like your study is focused on analyzing the materials, things like that. Okay, so but this is the guiding only. It may vary, depends on the nature of your study. Okay, let's moving on. The next component is the result. Okay, so or findings. Now you present. So normally you have research question. What did you find to address the research question? So basically, for example, you have 3 research questions. Then I expect to see at least three sections to address. The research question. Okay, but this is, you don't have to stick to like the number of research questions. You may present it in a more dynamic way, but make sure that the key findings that help you to address the question are presented in a logical and meaningful way. Okay, so in this study I have like 2 research questions, so I'm gonna put 2 research questions right here. I have another section to present as descriptive statistics. Well, this is not the part of the research question, but it's important to to present these so the readers have more the background knowledge of the data and what I found. Yeah, I can, and I also have another section that to support the 2 research questions, the finding for the 2 research questions right here. So you see, it's up to you to decide how many, but it's normally that it depends on the number of research questions. If you got 2 of them, then at least 2. If you got 3 of them, I would expect at least 3 sections in your findings. Okay, probably put it a bit bigger. Yep. So what do you present? You present normally the statistics, statistical analysis results. Okay, for this case I present the correlations and the model. All right, but you don't just interpret yet. We wait until the next section. What did you find? So this is the key. No need for comprehensive or even interpretation just yet. Okay, you just need to summarize what did you find, what are the relevant findings. You don't need to interpret it just yet. Okay, now the next section is where you interpret what it means. It's called the discussion. So in this section you're gonna talk about what do the findings actually mean for the purpose of the study. This is where you interpret what it means. Okay, so for example, you find the relationship between 2 variables, or you conduct an experiment and you find that, well, these factors has an influence on the participants. Then this is where you say that, okay, what do the finding means? How should they be interpreted? Okay, this is where you really go more deeply into what your finding actually means. And another function of discussions is that how is the current study shed light on the literature, or how does the current study shed light on literature, or how is it connected to the literature. So this is about how your study fit into the literature. Yeah. So you need to explain. All right. So this is what I found. Whether it supports or refutes previous findings. I think this is the I'll just get rid of the first one. I think this is more important to discuss. Yeah, and probably why. Okay, so these are the two questions that you really need to make it explicit in your discussion. Okay, now the last sections is just a conclusion. You conclude, summarize the study findings again, and key insights. Now it's very short, like take-home message, in your study. And you also need to talk about the limitation. Okay, what is the limitation of your study and future direction? So rather than the limitation, you need to talk about the future suggestions or direction, like how can other scholar continue to advance the investigation into this research topic. Okay, so these are very key aspects of the research paper. All right, and after that you might need to have some sort of a acknowledgement. So this is optional. Yeah, normally we will acknowledge the funding, like participants' contribution, and even your mentor or supervisor, whatever, whoever have support you in carrying out, your study. Okay, so that is also the key structure, key components of the research papers that I'd like to share with you. Okay, and hopefully it helps you to have a better idea of what it is in a paper. Okay, thank you for watching.